It sounds like one of the crew members on the Titanic as it's sinking saying, "We should look out for icebergs. They're dangerous." It's too late for you, Jeff Bezos. It's too late for the Washington Post. And it's definitely too late for these loser reporters who are acting like this deeply matters.
Welcome to Undercurrents, our daily news show from Unheard's Washington Bureau. Today's guest is the one and only Megyn Kelly. Subscribe here wherever you get your podcasts and over at undercurrents.tv for the full premium experience of the show. We are here every weekday talking to some of the smartest and most influential people in politics and culture. We will be live on election night, so please make sure to tune in for all of our coverage. Our guest today is one of those influential voices, one of the most influential voices in all of American politics, and her story is an incredible one, having left Fox News for NBC News, then leaving NBC News, and finding even more success with her own show, which millions and millions of people watch and listen to every single week. She's asked Donald Trump some of the toughest questions he's faced as a politician and never lets Democrats off the hook either. She's made a critical difference in the push to protect women's rights here in the U.S. and drives news cycles with her coverage of the history that is unfolding seemingly every single day. We are joined now by journalist Megyn Kelly, host of the Megyn Kelly Show podcast. Megyn, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Good to see you.
This episode is sponsored by Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it actually lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workouts, your sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do, it's so easy, is breathe right into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism. Lumen will tell you if you are burning mostly fats or carbs. Then Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. It's so amazing. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. Again, that is incredible. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game. It can also track your cycle as well as the onset of menopause and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts so you can keep up your energy and stave off those cravings. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/undercurrents to get 15% off Lumen. Great deal. That is lumen.me/undercurrents for 15% off your purchase. Donald Trump has taken the lead in Real Clear Politics' national average. It's small. He also has a lead in their battleground state average, and you covered these races closely. You've covered Donald Trump's presidential races closely. What is your prediction as it stands right now for what happens next Tuesday?
I have no idea. And anyone who tells you that they do have an idea is lying to you. It's just too tight to be making predictions. It's, the polls are neck and neck for a reason. And it's really, it comes down to this. Does his lead in the polls, is it real? Is it understated? And is it larger than the advantage she has on the get out the vote effort, right? Because her get out the vote people are reportedly saying that her advantage is someplace between 0.5 point to 1.5 points. So if Trump is up 0.9 of a percentage point, right? Does she have enough of a get out the vote advantage to overcome that? And is that all that Trump is up? Or is he still being underestimated as he has been in 20 and 22? We just don't know the answers to that. So you'd be foolish to make a prediction. If I just go with my gut, I'm feeling what I think most people are feeling on both sides, which is Trump has the momentum and she doesn't. He's up now in that Real Clear Politics average because he's been down. She's been up. She's had like a 1 point advantage, maybe a 1.5 point advantage, but hers has been going steadily down and his has been going steadily up. And that's all happening for him at just the right time. And by the way, typically when people are late deciders, they want to back who they think is the winner. Everybody always wants to back the winner so they can say, I chose it, I called it. That helps him too with this polling momentum. But man, it's just impossible to know.
I actually want to stay on that issue of the gut instinct, because my gut has been telling me, just as I've seen the Nazi comparisons, the obsession with celebrities in the last couple of days, and especially the endorsement temper tantrum at the Washington Post and Los Angeles Times, something feels like a freak out on the left. It feels almost desperate on the left right now. I wanted to get your sense. Like, do you feel like that's the vibe right now? Are they freaking out, or would they be freaking out no matter what?
Yes. No, they would not be freaking out no matter what. If this were Barack Obama, 2008, they would not be freaking out. They knew they had that in the bag, and we all knew they had that in the bag. Mika Brzezinski, every time I see a clip of her, she's crying. She's crying again, Emily. It's a lot of crying. You should save some of the tears for after the election, depending on how it goes for you, because you're kind of making a fool out of yourself now. Just get it together, woman. Blubbering does not become you. She's crying because women will die. They will actually die if Donald Trump is elected again. Nicole Wallace, same. Women will die. They will die. And to me, it's so galling, because if you want an abortion in America, you can get it. It's not quite as easy in states like Florida, Mississippi, and Texas as it used to be, but you can still get an abortion. Abortions have gone up post-Dobbs. Up, not down. However, what I'm more worried about is that these young women will live to get to the point where they can have consensual sex and become impregnated and have to consider such things. Because what we're seeing more and more is that women like Laken Riley are having their lives snuffed out in their young 20s while they're in college by illegal immigrants led in by Kamala Harris. Girls like Jocelyn Nagaro, who 12-year-old gets bound, wrists and ankles, tortured for 2 hours, and thrown over a bridge by these two illegals from Venezuela who are here courtesy of Kamala Harris's open border. I'm more worried about them and their lives than I am about the ever-loving need to have the abortion exactly when you want it, in the exact place that you want to have it, in whatever county, in whatever state, as opposed to the inconvenience of having to order the mifepristone pill. It's just, I feel like their priorities are so backwards. And this is one of the things that women are starting to get. Like, is it really that hard? Do I believe these tears I'm getting every day? Or can I just go by my gut instinct and look back on how I felt during the 4 years of Donald Trump?
So I think that's a really interesting point, because Democrats see abortion as their ticket to overcoming what you were talking about earlier, any turnout hurdles, especially in some of these suburban areas, suburban Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Phoenix, Raleigh, where they can get women to come out because they have rallied them on the issue of abortion. Do you think that'll be as effective as they want it to be? Or based on what you're saying, I actually think that's really interesting that women in this environment with mass immigration over the last couple of years, who have seen the inflation of the Biden administration, they have perhaps material concerns that overcome more abstract questions about abortion.
I have to believe that, Emily. I feel like for the diehard Democrats who's, are single issue voters on abortion, no, they're going to go and they're going to vote for Kamala Harris. But I do think that those sort of Republican women who are pro-choice, who are not huge Trump fans, are understanding that they have an obligation not only to think about how to snuff out the lives of the unborn children they may yet conceive, and spend some time thinking about the ones they already gave birth to and their safety, and what's going to happen to them when they have to walk through the streets of New York City, when they go to college, when they play a sport. Let's take the issue of boys, entering girls' sports and actually hurting them. It's not just a question of fairness, though. That's a good one to get into. It's a question of their well-being. Just as Peyton McNabb, girl in North Carolina, who's partially paralyzed, has brain damage as a result of a male volleyball player posing as female, wailing on her. That's just one example. So I think the Republicans came around a little too late to reframing the issue of women and girls' safety. It's not all about whether we can abort our babies and how long. There are a lot of things for us to worry about and us mothers to worry about, but they're getting there. The Trump campaign's got a couple of very strong ads out this week. And I just think the news cycle has gotten us there too. So I think they've given women something else to think about besides the ability to have an abortion on demand.
Did you catch Jeff Bezos's op-ed in his own paper to his employees? It was amazing. So am I crazy, or does Jeff Bezos, who is saying we need to be both accurate and believable, and that was his explanation for why he believes that they shouldn't be endorsing. They should go back to the I think it was 1976 model that the Post followed, and just not offer presidential endorsements. Does he have a better understanding of the media industry than the journalists who work for him?
Here's what that sounds like to me. It sounds like one of the crew members on the Titanic as it's sinking saying, we should look out for icebergs. They're dangerous. It's too late for you, Jeff Bezos. It's too late for the Washington Post. And it's definitely too late for these loser reporters who are acting like this deeply matters. I love the ones who are resigning. I hope they all resign. It's so fun to watch them resign. You're not going to get another job. The newspaper industry is imploding. No one can afford you at your overinflated salaries. The Washington Post is probably thrilled you're leaving. I mean, like, you're hurting only yourself, but it's super fun to watch from the outside. Like, okay, bye. The 200,000 subscribers who left. Okay, like, where are you going to go? I guess you're going to go to the New York Times where you already probably were. They'll probably sneak back to the Washington Post anyway because they really want to hear Ruth Marcus's sweet nothings about how evil Trump is. But who cares? Emily, they've got about 2.5 million in subscriptions online, digital subscriptions, and about 250 or 60,000 paper subscriptions. We're crushing that just at the Megyn Kelly show. I mean, like the Washington Post, that's like one show. They just don't have anywhere near the power or the influence they used to have where they could actually get a whole presidency deposed. So they're struggling to come to reality on that. And Jeff Bezos, in his sanctimonious, like, presidential endorsements don't have influence, which is true, letter, winds up saying, I'm really just concerned about the paper and the life of this paper. And what we can't have is people going to poorly researched podcasts for information instead of to us, your arbiters at the Washington Post. My team sent me, when I was talking about this in my request, a couple of examples of the Washington Post's well-researched history. Okay, here is an example from November 2020. Wearing a mask is not just about protecting other people. It can help you and might prevent lockdowns. Well, October 2020, a powerful argument for wearing a mask. 2021, we conducted the largest study on masks and COVID-19, and guess what? They work. Here's 2016 editorial board, Donald Trump, Putin's puppet. 2021, WAPO had to retract 2 stories written in March of 17 and 19, which were based on the discredited Steele dossier. I could keep going. That's the well-researched Washington Post. He's trying to keep people reading as opposed to these poorly researched podcasts that would tell you things like COVID definitely did not start with a pangolin.
The pangolin. Oh, God, I haven't thought about the pangolin in years. Yes, but Megyn, that is well-researched disinformation, which is the key distinction. If it's well-researched disinformation, it's totally fine.
He knows Trump is going to win. And he's like, there's no reason for us to poke the bear. I've got a lot of horses in this economic race. WAPO is basically a hobby. I run Amazon. I mean, I founded Amazon. I've got a space company. I've got a lot of things I need to worry about. I'd like to get along with this president.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. But this is one of the biggest questions I had for you. Is there a point, or maybe we've already hit it, of critical mass for independent media where it's actually more powerful than the legacy media? Because I keep wondering what that would be. Maybe we've already hit critical mass and independent media is more powerful than legacy media. Do you think that's the case? Do you think legacy media is still more powerful than people doing really popular podcasts like yourself? Just going through those numbers, it's amazing. But I also still look at these gatekeepers and they are still so influential. So is there a way to even know if we've reached that point?
I'm not sure about that, about critical mass. I think it's still growing, but I think we'll know for sure when we see the true implosion of these other news organizations, when what happened to CNN Plus happens to CNN. And probably the broadcast networks will fall first because their news properties anyway, because their news properties are already hemorrhaging versus where they were. I mean, let's just take like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, the Today Show was huge. It was still getting 6-7 million viewers in the morning. It was like Matt Lauer was still a huge star. People really kind of looked at them as like, that's an A-list property and where you'd go as an A-list news person. And that's, I'm talking about 2014. Now look at it. Now it's got 1/3 of that viewership. When was the last time Savannah Guthrie made news or Robin Roberts made news? I mean, it doesn't happen. Nobody's tuning into these shows. They're totally irrelevant. Who has more influence, right? Like Ben Shapiro or Wolf Blitzer, right? It's like you can see
how dare you
what's happening. But the left, the left still goes to these news organizations and still relies on them and can easily be influenced by them. So you can't say they have no power. I think anybody who's independent or right of center has realized they're not to be trusted, but might keep one eye on them for like weather news. Even I'll tune into CNN for like a hurricane, like if it doesn't speak to something politically, I think they can be trusted. But so few topics that are covered by cable news are non-political. So the shelf life of these organizations is very, very short.
I think what you just said is that the Daily Wire needs to send Ben Shapiro to hurricane zones.
Knowles. It should be Michael Knowles.
You're right.
Actually.
It should be Knowles, just out there with an umbrella.
Now, and a cigar.
Yeah, except it would keep going out. Actually, that would be great television. It was kind of surreal, the Madison Square Garden scene that you covered on your show, but I'm wondering sort of like what that looks like if Donald Trump loses, what the Republican Party, are you able to have the energy of a crowd in Madison Square Garden with Dana White, with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Dr. Phil, I mean, this huge coalition of people from totally diverse political backgrounds that the Republicans are now really benefiting from electorally. If Donald Trump loses, is any Republican, I mean, I like J.D. Vance. I can't see him being a figurehead of a movement that brings that broad of a coalition together. So in some sense, it's almost like Trump is, the glue that's keeping this new coalition together. What do you think happens to the GOP after Donald Trump if he loses?
It's a very good question, because while J.D. Vance is obviously a rising star and someone to whom Trump could pass the MAGA baton, he needs 4 years as vice president to really be the heir apparent. Just being the running mate does nothing for you long term. I mean, there's a lot of examples. Just ask Joe Lieberman. I mean, there's just a lot of examples of people who have completely faded into obscurity when they ran on a ticket and lost. And so it's a problem. I mean, it's a problem. I think the smart thing to do if Trump loses is to take that same coalition and for them, these are young guns, like Tulsi, Vivek, JD, RFKJ is not so young, but he's a lot younger than Trump, come together and come up with a real plan for how to fight all these fights, notwithstanding her win, right? We can't just wave the white flag on all these issues that are deeply important to us. If she wins, there has to be, I'm not going to use the word, the resistance, she persists, or any of that BS, but the fight is not over. One big fight will have been lost, but the fight is not over, and those people are going to have to get developed. Now, I do think they're going to need a strong leader. And JD's so young and hasn't really accomplished much. He's run for Senate, now he's been chosen as VP. I'm not sure if he could do it. Trump's not going to exit quietly stage left, so he'll still be around for a while. But I think the party will ultimately cultivate new leaders. I mean, I think he's not exactly what you think of when you think of MAGA, but like Glenn Youngkin is hugely impressive and has done nothing to alienate the MAGA base at all. You still have an executive leader in Ron DeSantis, who I don't think will be the top guy, but could be important to like the argument of how we get things done and what battles to pick. And so it's almost like you need like not a shadow presidency. There's no such thing, but like a well-organized Republican Party, unlike what we've had when it's been out of power, that can choose the battles.
Yeah, I'm thinking also if Kamala Harris manages to win next week, a lot of people are asking the question, how on the left and in the media saying, how could Donald Trump possibly be running such a close election? He's Donald Trump. January 6th happened. We saw his presidency. What on earth explains why Donald Trump is so close? But if we flip the question and ask, why Kamala Harris in an economy that she presided over when you have millions and millions of immigrants coming into the country, many illegally, many through false asylum claims, and it's just such a small period of time. How is Kamala Harris possibly in a position to win next week? When you hear that question, what do you think? What is it in the American people? Is it just this dislike of Donald Trump? Is it partisanship, polarization? What do you think it is?
I think it's orange man bad. They really hate Trump. I mean, the Democrats really loathe him and fear him. I think it's also abortion, which they love. As much as they hate Donald Trump, they love abortion. They love abortion on demand all the way through the third trimester. And yeah, I mean, to some extent, you've got just hard partisans in the country where we're just about evenly divided. We've seen that election after election after election. Look how, Biden won this race by 40,000 votes in 2020. It was tight. 7 million, yes, in the national popular vote, but we're talking about the ones that made the difference in the Electoral College, 40,000. We are divided right down the middle, and people have their strong preferences given their team jerseys. Donald Trump is one of the few characters in recent history to disrupt that whole thing, to sort of remake a party, change the coalition, sending people out and bringing new people in, right? The suburban wine mom used to be more of a Republican thing. Now it's a Democrat thing. The working class used to be, and unions, we used to be all Democrats. Now they're Republican. So
because you have to
I
be
do think
drunk
those
to
are the three
watch
factors.
Nicole Wallace and Mika Brzezinski. Doesn't matter if it's 8 a.m. You
it
have
helps.
to be hammered.
I mean, they are, so might as well.
I mean,
That's how it looks.
Fair enough. Megyn, what is your media diet like? I'm just curious on a personal level. I feel like you consume so much news, but you also have time, of course, for the Real Housewives of Miami, as you mentioned on your show not long ago. But how do you consume news as somebody who comes from the legacy media, but is now totally leading the way in the independent space?
Well, I'll tell you, my kids say you can always find mom in the house because you can hear a podcast going from her phone. I don't have my headphones in. I listen to it on my, just put on speaker, and almost always on 2.0. And that's how I'm able to get through so many of them. But I do a ton. I mean, it's such a wide variety. And sometimes it depends on the day. If something big is happening in the Mideast, I'll definitely listen to my pals over at Commentary because I think Podoretz and crew are great at talking about, they're very pro-Israel. They're more neo-Connie, but I like to hear that POV. I'll go to the Federalist, which you know well. They're less neo-Connie, and I'll hear their POV. I like the guys at National Review a lot. I listen to The Daily. I listen to Ben on a lot of days. Sometimes I'll listen to Glenn Beck. I will put on some CNN or Fox News if there's breaking news. I don't listen to them. Sometimes I put on Morning Joe just for fun. I mean, it's like a comedy show for me in the morning. I really enjoy it. It's super fun to listen to their hysterics. I always listen to, I hate, but always listen to NPR's Up First and also Morning Wire of the Daily Wire. So I take in a bunch, but then I also get the Times, the Journal, and the New York Post delivered to my house. So I'll thumb through those and see what's interesting. And then my team puts together these research packets for me, super long and in depth, collating the news of the day that they think will be relevant to our show or our guest and what they just know I like. So I take it in that way too. It's just a full news diet.
People listening to that are probably like, what the fuck? That was so much.
Well, it's my job.
But you were so casual about it. You were like, I listen to these 20 podcasts and then I read these 40 papers. And, at the end of the day, it's...
And there's more, too, I have to tell you. Sometimes I listen to the Wall Street Journal podcast. I like my guys over at Real Clear Politics. They have a fun one out. I don't know. I just try to keep the diet wide. I will listen to the New York Times, The Daily, which is insufferable, but relatively short. I just kind of my main goal is to not be corrupted by any one side. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be a neocon. I don't want to be America First. I don't want to be a hard leftist. I don't want to be a National Reviewist. I want to just be a person who can talk to anyone and comes at it with an understanding for why they are the way they are without being too judgy.
Well, you heard it here first, everyone. Megyn Kelly is America last. Doesn't want to be America first. Megyn, my last question for you is, what's the secret to doing well in the independent space? Because you absolutely were a trailblazer and you do it better than anyone else. So what is with you, this would be my guess at your answer. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it's just that authenticity and genuine curiosity that I think sets you apart. But how do you see it? What makes people thrive in this space?
Oh, thank you. I think, authenticity for sure, because they'll be able to smell a phony in this format very quickly. And honesty. I think you have to be honest about your mistakes, what you're uncertain of. There is definitely a different standard on this show. I will report things that aren't nailed down by two different sources on the record. Here you can say, look, this report is broken. There's one source. I'm not sure about this one, but everyone's talking about it. So I'm going to bring it to you, but I need you to have a huge asterisk around it because it could fall apart. And then you have to be sure to come back on and say it fell apart or it held up. I just think there's just such a different universe. First of all, you have to sign on to podcasting in general. And I think more and more Americans are doing that. When I first launched, it was 50% of Americans had downloaded a podcast. And now it's got to be way higher than that. Because once you get into podcasts in general, you really can't tolerate corporate media. It's so unsatisfying. You hear these in-depth discussions about a news or like a tricky issue that's hard to explain. A lot of times we do legal, and it takes some effort to set up, especially during the whole Trump lawfare days. It takes some effort to set up what they're accusing him of at Mar-a-Lago, and what is the law, and what about the Fannie Willis, and what did she do with Nathan Wade? Well, that one was kind of clear, actually. And to have like a good 20 minutes to dive into one subject is so luxurious, as opposed to the BS 4-minute segment you got to get up and down on cable news and leave the audience totally not sated. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, once you've signed on to podcasts, you're expecting that. And then you need a host who can go deep, who does their homework, right? And then is just, like I said, honest about what we know and what we don't know, and where the host stands and what the host's bias is.
That's so important. Also helps to be a lawyer. Megyn Kelly, thank you so much. It was really amazing to be able to interview you, and I appreciate it very, very much.
Emily, you are crushing it. I love, love, love listening to you. One of the things I love about you is you come at issues from totally unexpected places. Like, your ins are not everybody else's ins. It's not predictable what Emily Jashinsky is going to say. And that is very special and is going to serve you very well over your very long, illustrious career to come.
Well, thank you. I'm blushing and I appreciate it. It means a lot. And we will see you again soon, Megyn.
To be continued.
Okay, so I really, really was blushing there. That is because, if you can't tell, Megyn is one of my favorite people in media, one of my favorite people ever, really. She's been so kind to me throughout my career. But more importantly than all of that, she is the best at what she is doing. So important, whether you're on the left or the right, I think, to take some of those lessons to heart about being open and honest about where you're coming from as a journalist. That's what audiences increasingly want. So, fascinating conversation with Megyn just a few days out from the election. So, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. Please make sure to subscribe here to Undercurrents. We are here every single day. So if you're looking for a new podcast, maybe you don't already have 50 like Megyn does, make sure to make Undercurrents one of your daily shows, one of your daily listens. If you listen, go wherever you get your podcasts and tune in. We're also over at undercurrents.tv with a full premium experience. It's the best way to support the show. And you also get subscriber-only episodes every single week and all kinds of other great content from Unheard. We'll be back here with more soon.